Hi guys, we are continuing our look into the book of First John. We're in First John chapter 2 today as we continue our Carriers series, and the title of today's message is Where's the Love, Man? A lot of times we get confused about a lot of things, and in today's passage, it's no different than things that we've dealt with in the past and stuff like that. But you know how Jesus said that his disciples would be recognized throughout the world? We often think, we got to act this way, we got to do this certain things. And the way that Jesus said that his disciples will be recognized would not be, their views on abortion. It wouldn't be their views on homosexuality. It wouldn't be our involvement in a Bible-believing church or our doctrinal stance on salvation. No, what engages most people, what causes us to stand out from the world, it's not our convictions, as important as those are, but it is love. Jesus commanded us to do two things. He commanded us to love God first and foremost, and He commanded us to love one another, to love our neighbors, and even to love our enemies. In John chapter 13, it says this. It says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." Here it is. "By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples, if you love one another." When we live a life of love, the world sits up and the world takes notice. You see, now is the time for the world to take notice of the church, of the disciples of Christ, because the world is in search of an answer. There is so much going on with the pandemic and people out of work and stuff like that, and people are looking for answers. And they have to know where they can turn. And they need to, and they will turn to the church and to the disciples of Christ if the disciples of Christ are showing the love of Christ, because we all need an answer. And the world especially needs an answer, and that answer is love. This is what it says in our text today. Starting in verse 15 of 1 John chapter 2, "Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever." In these verses, John tells us that there is a worldly kind of love that is diametrically opposed to the love of God. And he specifically identifies three love killers that can destroy God's love in our lives. And that's what we're going to look at today. But like I said, the world needs to be able to look at us and see that we are different, that we are, what's the right word? Set apart. We're set apart. There's something different about us. And so in order to figure out what that difference is, we're going to have to figure out what it looks like to be like the world, if that makes sense. In the book of Galatians, when Paul is talking about the fruit of the Spirit, he also talks about the acts of sinful nature to kind of contradict what the fruit of the Spirit is. And so that's the same thing here. John is telling us, we have to be like God, and our love has to be God's love. And this is what God's love does not look like. More specifically, in verse 16, we're going to kind of camp out in verse 16 here for a little bit. And the first thing that he says is a love killer. I guess is the best way to put it. The first thing he talks about being opposite of God's love is carnality. Carnality, the carnal nature. Carnality kills love. And it says the lust of the flesh. That's what carnality is, the lust of the flesh. See, lust of the flesh, carnality, is a cancer that eats away at real love, corroding it and corrupting it. You see, and it is so front and center right now in this pleasure-seeking, self-focused 2020 quarantined society. I know that we've been at home for a while, and we've been unable to go and do certain things that we would like to go and do. A lot of people have used that time to work on their gardens. A lot of people have used that time for home improvements. A lot of people have used that time constructively, but a lot of people have not. They've used that time to sit at home and watch Netflix and stuff like that. Binge watch, that's a relatively new term that's come out in the past few years, is binge watching on Netflix and streaming platforms like that. But Zanita and I, we tried several times during this pandemic to sit down and watch a show. And the cool thing about Netflix is you can watch an entire season of a show if you have enough time. And so Zanita and I decided, we're going to try and watch a new show. Several times we've tried this, and we sit down and we watch a new show, and 15 minutes into the second episode, I think they use the second episode, I don't know, because you're already hooked to the show, but 15 minutes into the second episode, they start showing the filth, and we have to turn it off. You see, that filth and controversy, those two things, they sell. And that's not the only type of lust of the flesh. Let's be honest. People lust after food, feeling good. The food makes them feel good and stuff like that. And so it's not just, sexual desires, for lack of a better term. It's not just that. There are a lot of things. Feeling good is a big one. That's why, drug dealers make money. That's why liquor stores make money. That's why stuff like that makes money, because people want to feel good, or they don't want to feel anything at all. So that's what they're seeking. That is lust of the flesh. And it's not good. It takes the place of true love. When you love a substance, when you love a feeling, whenever you love gratification, right? Whenever you love self-gratification, that's lust of the flesh. That's carnality. That's the first thing that kills the love that God intended for us to have. The second one is this: covetousness. Yeah, covetousness kills love. It says the lust of the eyes. We crave gratification, right? We crave that carnality, that lust of the flesh. But the lust of the eyes, that covetousness, that is a craving as well. And rather than craving those good feelings, it's a craving for stuff. I love Thor. I love all the Marvel movies, but in Thor Ragnarok, I think it is, when he first comes back home, and he's on the bridge there, and he's coming home. Well, before he gets there, the guy's sitting there, and he's showing these people, and he says, "Look at all my stuff." And he had these two machine guns. He said, "I got these from a place called Texas. I call them Des and Troy. Put them together and they destroy." But that was his thing. Look at all my stuff. That's what we like to do as a people in this society. Look at all my stuff. The New Living Translation calls it a craving for everything we see. And the God's Word translation simply calls it greed. You see, rather than loving God or loving people, covetousness is loving things. The love of our stuff. You see, this consumer-driven culture that we live in breeds covetousness. And it's so easy because, and the pandemic has proved it even more so, because, we are more apt to stay at home, and rather than go out and go shopping. I mean, a lot of places are closed, but when we have to stay home, we're able to shop on our devices through Amazon and stuff like that. And we see all these ads, we see all these ads on our phones or on our computers and stuff like that We're living in the most marketed to culture in history. Seems like you can just be talking on the phone and mention something, and then it pops up in your timeline or in your news feed the next day or even the next hour. The average American sees over 3,000 advertisements a day. A child born in 2020 will see over 1 million commercials or advertisements before age 20. And all these ads are working. It seems like everybody wants something bigger, something faster, something nicer, something newer, something thinner, Now, they don't want much, mind you. Just one thing will do. One new job, one new car, one new house, one new spouse. Others want more. Children want more toys, want more video games. Teenagers want more freedom. They want more phones. Grown-ups want more stuff and more money. Someone once said the only reason a great many American families don't own an elephant is that they have never been offered an elephant for $0 down and $99 a month. This is what Luke chapter 12 and verse 15 says. Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Life is not about stuff. God meant for us to love people and use things, not the other way around. Think about it. Well, the final love killer that John identifies is conceit. Conceit kills love, or as he puts it, the pride of life. Now, the Greek word for pride was usually used to describe a conceited man who was always trying to impress people with his own importance. Boy, this is terrible, but it reminds me of the pompous-looking deacon who was trying to impress upon a class of young men the importance of living a Christian life. He said this, "Why do people call me a Christian?" And after a moment's pause, one of the young men in the class, he said, "Well, maybe it's because they don't know you very well." If carnality has a twisted way of describing love as pleasure, and covetousness describes love of stuff, then conceit describes love of self. When you love yourself more than anything else, there won't be any room in your heart for loving God or loving your neighbor. There has been a problem with idolatry since, the Old Testament. In the Ten Commandments, have no other gods before me, right? Well, idolatry used to look like, there's Baal over there. We went out and we made Baal, and we took all this stuff and we put it together, and we created this thing, so let's go worship what we created. That's what idolatry used to look like. Now, it's gotten so bad that we take a look in the mirror and we said, "Oh, look at this guy. Look at this self-made man. Look at what all he has accomplished. He's done this, he's done that, he's made this much money, he's that love of stuff coming back into this much money, done this, that, and the other. That is a great guy. You know what? I'm going to bow down and worship him." That's what idolatry looks like today. Yeah, we say we worship money, but we worship the fact that we're able to go out and get and earn that money, regardless of the fact that the Lord is the one who blessed us with the ability to do that. That's neither here nor there, because when we love ourselves more than anything else, there's not going to be any room in our heart for loving God or loving our neighbor. This is what 1 Corinthians 13 says, the love chapter. And if there's anywhere in the Bible that's going to describe what love looks like other than this, in 1 John chapter 2, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Starting in verse 4, we've heard this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrong. when we allow pride and when we allow ego to take up residence in our hearts, it will drive the love of God right out. Now, I'm not teaching you anything new. This is not groundbreaking stuff. In fact, this has been, around since the very beginning. In fact, when the serpent tempted Eve, he tempted her with these three things. With the lust of the flesh. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. In Genesis chapter 3, it says that the fruit, she saw that the fruit was good for food. Lust of the flesh, we put food in there, right? Physical desire. Oh, it's gonna give me satisfaction. It's probably gonna taste sweet. It looks so good. Even though God said not to eat it, because if I eat it, I'm gonna die. It doesn't matter. It looks good. It looks good for food. Even though I know that there's addictive qualities or addictive properties about this certain drink or this certain substance, it's going to make me feel good when I partake in that. So that's the first thing Satan tempted Eve with, was the lust of the flesh. Well, then, the lust of the eyes. It also says in that verse that the fruit was pleasing to the eye. It looked good. It was very beautiful. In fact, it was probably, if we're thinking about this, rationally, it was probably one of the most beautiful trees in the garden. The fact that God pointed it out and he said, you see that? It's different from all these other trees. You got this tree with this apple on it. You've got this tree with these lemons on it. They're beautiful. But you see this tree? Yeah, you notice that it's different from all the others, right? Very pleasing to the eye, it says. Lust of the eyes. And he also tempted her with the pride of life. In verse 5, he said, you will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good from evil. Eve thought about that and said, you know what? He's right. He's got a point. Obviously, God's been holding out on me, so I'm going to take it upon myself to do what I want to do. She took the fruit. She had some, saw that it was good, gave it to her husband. He had some, and the rest is, as they say, history. Satan never changes his game. Whenever he came upon Jesus in the desert after fasting for 40 days, same three things. Lust of the flesh, make that rock become bread. Lust of the eyes, stick him up over all and showed him everything. He said, just bow down to me. And then the pride of life. He said, hey man, you and I, we can do this together. Never changes his game. God values self-control, right? God values a spirit of generosity and a commitment to humble servants. You see, it is possible to give the impression of avoiding worldly pleasures while still harboring worldly attitudes in one's heart. It's also possible, like Jesus, to love sinners and spend time with them while maintaining a commitment to the values of God's kingdom. So where do we fall in this? And if you don't get anything else out of today, get this. What values are most important to you? Do your actions reflect the world's values or God's values? Verse 17, we'll say it again. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God, that person lives forever. Book of Revelation says that a time's coming with new heaven and new earth. So what that tells me, and this verse just told us, that this world's passing away, but the values of this world are passing away. The things that the world hold near and dear, pleasure, self-seeking, all that stuff, that's passing away. And the things that are going to stand the test of time are the things of God. That humble service. What can I do for you today? I know you're hurting. I know that this pandemic has wreaked havoc on you and your family. I know that. But let me tell you about a guy. I know a guy, and if you would just spend time getting to know this guy as I have spent time getting to know this guy, the momentary troubles and the momentary struggles of this world don't seem as bad, because the things in this world are passing away. But we have a chance to live forever. God bless you guys.